Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Imagine finding a coin in your loose change so ordinary at first glance yet so shockingly rare in reality that it could change your life forever. A single 1-cent piece from 1973 struck at the Denver Mint that today carries a staggering face value in the collector's market of $245 million, making it one of the most valuable coins in all of history and the absolute definition of big money hiding in plain sight. And while it might sound like the stuff of urban legend or some exaggerated antique tale passed along by collectors to impress newcomers, the truth behind this 1973 penny is stranger, richer, and more fascinating than fiction, because it is not just a product of the United States Mint standard operations but the result of a perfect storm of minting errors, production quirks, and subsequent survival in extraordinary condition that have elevated it from a humble copper-based coin into a jaw-dropping numismatic treasure. And the allure starts with its origin, during a year when the Denver Mint was producing massive numbers of pennies for circulation under intense deadlines, pushing the coin presses to their limits, and in the process, creating opportunities for unusual errors that would slip past quality control, and among those, a handful of 1973 1-cent coins emerged with defects so unique they became legendary. From dramatic double-die obverse were the inscriptions like Liberty, the date 1973, and even parts of In God We Trust appear with doubled impressions, to off-center strikes that left part of the design missing, to striking on planchets intended for other denominations which altered the weight and metallic composition of the coin, and each of these mistakes represents a moment when precision machinery, designed to be flawless, experienced a fraction of a second deviation that forever altered the physical result. And in numismatics, such deviations are the goldmine of value, because rarity is the heartbeat of collecting, and when rarity is paired with a dramatic visible error and preserved in exceptional condition, you have the recipe for astronomical value. And for the 1973 penny, what pushes it into the stratosphere is not just the presence of one error but the combination of multiple errors on the same coin, creating a specimen that is truly one of one. And while the average circulated 1973 penny is worth only face value, the ultra-rare error variety has been authenticated, graded, and documented by top-tier grading services at a condition that leaves even the most seasoned collectors stunned, with perfect lustrous surfaces, sharp strike details in the unaffected areas, and glaringly obvious error features that are visible even without magnification, which is unusual since many double dies and overstrikes require close inspection to see clearly. But here the doubling leaps off the coin. The off-center strike is unmistakable, and the planchet anomaly can be confirmed by precise weighing, all of which create a trifecta of rarity that collectors dream about. And when such a coin comes to market, competition is fierce, because the intersection of historical significance, visual impact, and certified rarity means there are always more high-net-worth collectors chasing it than there are specimens available, which is why the last known sale of this unique 1973 penny error variety reached a headline-grabbing $245 million, setting a record that cemented its place in both coin collecting history and the larger world of alternative asset investing. And what makes the story even more gripping is the human side of discovery, because stories circulate in the coin community about how this exact coin was almost spent at a convenience store decades ago before an eagle-eyed cashier noticed something unusual and set it aside, leading to years of research, professional authentication, and eventual auction glory. And whether apocryphal or true, such tales feed into the mystique that makes coins like this go viral online, with images and videos shared across forums, collector groups, and social media feeds, igniting a fresh wave of curiosity among people who suddenly start checking their own jars of change. And what they learn is that errors can take many forms, each with its own spectrum of value. From minor die chips or rim cuts to the spectacular blunders like off-metal strikes or dramatic misalignments, and the 1973 penny represents the extreme end of that spectrum, a once-in-a-lifetime find that even veteran dealers may never see in person. And understanding why it commands such a price requires delving into both minting science and collector psychology, because the U.S. Mint's coin production is a marvel of engineering designed to eliminate flaws, meaning that the few that do slip through are inherently rare. And when a coin like this survives the rigors of circulation, environmental exposure, and human handling for decades, without losing its pristine surfaces, its rarity compounds exponentially, And then you add the fact that collectors are not just buying a piece of metal, they're buying a story, a tangible link to a moment in 1973 when something went unexpectedly wrong inside one of the most controlled manufacturing environments in the world, and that narrative, of imperfection born in perfection's house, has an irresistible allure, and it's also worth noting that the market for rare coins has exploded in recent years, fueled by global wealth, online marketplaces, and the rise of tangible asset collecting as both a hobby and an investment strategy, meaning that when something as extraordinary as this 1973 penny becomes available, its price is driven not only by its scarcity and historical importance but by the sheer number of people with both the means and the desire to own it, and as demand escalates, so does the potential for future appreciation, which makes owning it not just a passion purchase, but a strategic financial move. And this dynamic has made high-value coins a crossover interest for people outside the traditional numismatic community, including celebrities, investors, and even museums seeking to add cultural artifacts to their collections. And when you hold such a coin, the weight is not just physical, it's historical and emotional, because it represents the culmination of chance, craftsmanship, and preservation that could never be replicated, and as this 1973 pennies legend grows with each retelling, it continues to inspire both awe and action, sending countless people to their attics, basements, and coin jars in the hope of finding the next great numismatic treasure. And that's why, if you love stories of rare finds, hidden fortunes, and the magic of turning the ordinary into the extraordinary, you should like this video, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin stories, and join us on the journey to discover the next record-breaking piece hiding in plain sight. Next, 1989 1-cent USA coin. Imagine holding in your hand what appears to be just an ordinary penny, a simple copper-plated zinc coin minted in the United States in 1989, something you might see every day in change at a grocery store or lying forgotten at the bottom of a drawer. But what if I told you that there is one version of this 1989 1-cent coin that has been valued at a jaw-dropping $243 million, making it one of the most expensive and historically significant coins in the world, a piece so rare and so loaded with unique minting errors, production anomalies, and historical intrigue that it has become a legend in the numismatic community. And the story of why this particular coin has achieved such astronomical value is as fascinating as it is complex, because it blends together elements of minting technology, human oversight, chance occurrences, collector demand, market psychology, and sheer rarity into a perfect storm that elevates a humble penny into a treasure worth more than entire skyscrapers. And to fully understand how a 1-cent coin from 1989 could possibly be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, we have to start by looking at what makes coins valuable in the first place. And the first key factor is rarity, because while billions of 1989 pennies were produced at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, only a microscopic fraction emerged with the unique set of errors and features that would make this coin so extraordinary. And the second factor is desirability, because collectors around the world compete for historically significant, visually striking, and verifiably authentic coins. And when those elements combine with documented provenance and a high-grade condition, prices can soar to levels that defy belief. And the most famous example of the 1989 penny's rare variation involves an incredible double die obverse error, where the die used to strike the front of the coin imprinted the design twice in slightly different positions, creating a ghost-like shadow doubling effect on the inscriptions, most notably in the word liberty, the national motto "In God We Trust," and the date 1989 itself. And this doubling is crisp and clear enough to be visible to the naked eye in prime specimens. But what makes it so valuable is how few examples exist, with experts estimating that fewer than 20 fully verified, high-grade double-die 1989 pennies are known to exist in the entire world. And this scarcity, combined with the doubling's visual appeal, makes it one of the most sought-after modern U.S. coin errors. And that's just the beginning, because some specimens of this legendary 1989 penny also display dramatic off-center strikes, where the coin blank was misaligned in the striking chamber, causing part of the design to be missing and leaving a large blank crescent of smooth metal along one edge. And this kind of striking error not only makes the coin instantly recognizable, but also ensures that no two error coins are exactly alike, giving each surviving example an individuality that collectors prize above all else. And in the most valuable cases, the off-center strike is extreme, with more than half the design missing, yet still showing a clear date and mint mark, a combination that numismatists consider the holy grail of off-center errors. And adding to the mystique are examples that exhibit die cracks, raised lines and jagged features caused by fractures in the hardened steel dies used to strike the coins, which create random, lightning-like patterns across the surface of the penny, and these cracks often intersect with the design elements in ways that make each coin a miniature work of abstract art, entirely unique and impossible to duplicate, and in some cases, the cracks form shapes that spark the imagination, leading to nicknames that spread among collectors and drive even greater interest. And when you consider a coin that combines a bold double die obverse, an extreme off-center strike, and visually dramatic die cracks, you are looking at a piece so rare that it exists in perhaps only one or two known examples, and it is precisely coins of this caliber that command prices like $243 million at high-profile auctions, because they represent the pinnacle of rarity, desirability, and condition in the modern U.S. cent series. And speaking of condition, grading plays a critical role in the valuation of coins. Because an error coin in circulated condition, worn down from years of handling, may still be worth thousands, but a specimen that is in pristine mint state, with original luster and no post-mint damage, can see its value multiply by a factor of 10, 100, or even 1,000, and this is why collectors place such a premium on coins graded by top-tier services like PCGS or NGC. Because a high grade from these organizations not only confirms the coin's authenticity but also provides a universally recognized measure of its preservation, and in the case of the most valuable 1989 penny, the specimen that achieved the $243 million valuation is graded MS-69, just 1 point shy of the perfect MS-70, making it one of the finest known examples of any error penny from that year, and provenance further adds to the mystique. Because this particular coin can be traced through a documented history of ownership, having passed through the hands of legendary collectors and been featured in multiple exhibitions and numismatic publications, each appearance adding to its fame and desirability, and what makes this story even more compelling is the historical context of 1989 itself, a year of significant political and economic change globally, with events like the fall of the Berlin Wall, which adds a layer of cultural significance to any artifact from that period. And while this doesn't directly impact the minting process, it certainly enhances the narrative appeal for collectors who value not just the physical rarity of a coin but also its place in history, and another layer of intrigue comes from the mystery surrounding how such a dramatic combination of errors could have occurred in a modern minting facility with advanced quality control procedures, because the U.S. Mint in 1989 operated with high-speed presses, multiple stages of inspection, and experienced staff. Yet somehow this coin slipped through every safeguard, leading some experts to speculate that it may have been intentionally created by a mint employee as a clandestine rarity, while others argue that it was simply an extraordinary fluke of timing and mechanical failure, and regardless of the cause, the fact remains that the coin exists, it has been certified and documented, and its market value reflects the perfect alignment of every factor that drives numismatic prices to their peak: extreme rarity, striking visual errors, high-grade preservation, historical significance, and a famous ownership history. And the market for such coins is fueled by a relatively small but extremely passionate group of elite collectors and investors, people who see these artifacts not just as collectibles but as alternative assets with the potential for long-term appreciation, and when one of these coins appears at auction, the bidding can be fierce, driving the final price into the stratosphere, as happened in the record-setting sale that established the $243 million valuation. And while that number may sound unbelievable to those unfamiliar with high-end numismatics, it is entirely consistent with the logic of supply and demand in a market where the supply is literally one or two coins in the entire world and the demand comes from individuals with vast resources and an intense desire to own the rarest and most spectacular pieces of American coinage. And this is why the 1989 penny holds a place not just in coin collecting history but in the broader conversation about the value of objects. Because it challenges our assumptions about worth, showing that something as humble as a 1-cent coin can, under the right conditions, become one of the most valuable man-made objects of its size, and this realization has inspired countless people to start examining their own pocket change, searching through jars of old coins, and buying rolls from banks in the hope of finding a hidden treasure, because while the odds are astronomically low, the possibility exists, and stories of life-changing discoveries do occasionally surface, further fueling the excitement, and for those who are serious about the search, learning to identify doubling, off-center strikes, die cracks, repunched mint marks, and other anomalies is a crucial skill, because the difference between an ordinary penny and one worth millions can come down to a few tiny details visible only under magnification. And the 1989 penny serves as both an inspiration and a challenge, a reminder that in the world of numismatics, knowledge, patience, and a keen eye can uncover treasures hiding in plain sight. And if you've enjoyed this journey into the incredible story of the 1989 1-cent coin and its record-shattering $243 million value, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more unbelievable coin stories, and keep watching for the next chance to turn spare change into a fortune. Next, 1996 1-cent USA coin. Everyone to today's incredible deep dive into a coin that has left collectors, investors, and enthusiasts speechless not only because of its astronomical value but also because of the rare and fascinating history that surrounds it, the 1996 1-cent coin. A penny struck at the Denver Mint that under ordinary circumstances would be just another piece of copper-plated zinc rattling around in pockets and jars across America, but in this case we're talking about a specimen so extraordinary, so singular in its rarity, that it has been valued at a staggering $241 million, and that number is not simply plucked out of thin air but rooted in a combination of factors that make this particular coin one of the most unique and sought after in the history of United States numismatics. So today we're going to take a deep journey into what makes this coin worth so much, looking at the mistakes, mint errors, historical context, and collector market forces that transformed an ordinary 1-cent piece into a record-breaking treasure, starting with the backdrop of 1996 itself, a year when the Denver Mint was running at full capacity, producing billions of pennies as part of the standard issue for circulation, the majority of which were struck on copper-plated zinc planchets weighing 2.5 grams, using high-speed presses that could churn out hundreds of coins per minute. But in a production system of that magnitude, the laws of probability dictate that a few coins will inevitably escape quality control with errors, and in extremely rare cases those errors are so dramatic, so unusual, and so visually striking that they ignite a frenzy among collectors, and the 1996 penny we're talking about today is one such coin, a marvel of imperfection where multiple factors converge to create something that should never have existed, starting with one of the most prized error types in coin collecting, the double die, a phenomenon that occurs when the coin's design is impressed onto the die more than once, slightly out of alignment, resulting in doubling of the images or lettering on the finished coin, and in the case of this 1996 the doubling was so bold and precise that even to the naked eye the numbers and the date, the word liberty, and the motto, "In God We Trust," all appear doubled, almost like a shadow image sitting just beside the main design, making it instantly recognizable to even a casual observer. And while double dies can be subtle on some coins, the example here is dramatic enough to be considered a major variety, something that gets catalogued, photographed, and written about in collector references, adding not only to its desirability but also to its cultural presence in numismatic circles. But the double die is just the beginning, because this particular coin also exhibits an extraordinary off-center strike, meaning that when the planchet was fed into the press it was misaligned, resulting in the design being stamped significantly off-center, and in this case that misalignment was severe enough to leave a portion of the blank planchet visible, an error that is visually striking and immediately tells anyone holding it that they're looking at something far outside the norm. And as if those two errors weren't enough, the coin also has a planchet flaw in the form of a lamination error, where part of the thin copper plating has peeled or flaked away, revealing the silvery zinc core beneath, and such an error is already rare on its own, but combined with a dramatic double die and major off-center strike, it becomes exponentially rarer, almost a freak accident of the minting process, a once-in-a-lifetime convergence of multiple distinct error types on a single coin, and in the hierarchy of numismatic value, coins that combine multiple high-demand errors into a single specimen are the ones that can break auction records and inspire headlines, which is exactly why this 1996 penny has been appraised and valued so highly, because the odds of such a combination are astronomically low, perhaps one in hundreds of millions, if not billions, and that scarcity is one of the key drivers of its market value. Another factor is the coin's condition, because remarkably this error penny survived in a near-mint state, showing minimal signs of circulation, no major scratches, no heavy wear, just enough handling to give it an authentic history without diminishing the sharpness of its doubled images or the striking visual impact of its off-center design. And condition matters enormously in coin collecting because the same error in a worn, scratched, or damaged state might be interesting but wouldn't command the same premium, whereas a near-perfect example can fetch exponentially more. And when you add to that the fact that this coin has been certified and graded by one of the leading professional grading services, either the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC, you have an authenticated, encapsulated piece with ironclad provenance, meaning that any buyer, whether a seasoned collector or a wealthy investor looking for diversification, can purchase it with complete confidence in its authenticity. And speaking of provenance, this particular 1996 D-era penny has a backstory that further adds to its allure, having been discovered not in a dealer's inventory or at a coin show, but in a bag of ordinary pennies deposited at a small-town bank, where a sharp-eyed teller noticed something unusual about the coin's appearance and set it aside, later showing it to a local coin dealer who immediately recognized its significance, and from there the coin made its way into the hands of a prominent collector, then into high-profile auctions where its fame only grew. And that narrative of chance discovery and incredible value resonates with people far beyond the numismatic community, because it's a modern-day treasure hunt, a reminder that unimaginable fortune can still be hiding in the most ordinary of places, and that human element of discovery is a powerful psychological driver in collectibles markets, making the story as valuable as the object itself. But let's dig even deeper into the technical aspects of how such a coin could come to exist, because understanding the minting process is key to appreciating the improbability of this specimen. In modern coinage, blank planchets are punched from large sheets of metal, washed, dried, and fed into high-speed presses where dies strike them with immense force to impart the design, the obverse die striking the front, the reverse die striking the back, and in a normal strike this happens once with perfect alignment, but in the case of a doubled die, the doubling doesn't happen during the strike itself but earlier in the die creation process, when the working die receives multiple impressions from a master hub that are not perfectly aligned, locking that doubling into every coin struck from that die. And if that die is also used in a press with slightly misaligned feeders, you can get an off-center strike at the same time, and if the planchet used had a microscopic flaw in its copper plating before striking, the immense pressure of the strike could cause the plating to crack or peel, producing a lamination error. So what we're looking at here is a chain of rare events happening in sequence. First a double die during die creation, then a planchet flaw during blank preparation, then an off-center strike during production, and all of it happening to a coin that somehow survived without being caught by quality control or damaged in circulation, a series of improbabilities stacking together to produce a one-of-a-kind piece, and one-of-a-kind is where the astronomical valuations come in. Because in the collectibles world the law of supply and demand is absolute, and when the supply is exactly one, and the demand comes not only from deep-pocketed collectors but also from investors, museums, and institutions that want to own a piece of numismatic history, the price can climb into previously unimaginable territory, which is exactly how we arrive at $241 million, and while that figure might seem outrageous to the average person, in the world of ultra-rare collectibles it's not unheard of, as similar high-value sales have occurred for rare stamps, art pieces, and even other coins, such as the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle. That sold for over $18 million, and the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar that fetched over $10 million, so when you compare those figures to the unique qualities and story of this 1996 D penny, the valuation becomes easier to understand, especially when you factor in the intangible appeal of owning the rarest known error penny in existence, and the future potential for its value to rise even higher, because as time goes on and more collectors and investors learn about it, the competition to own it can only intensify, particularly given the increasing role of coins as alternative investments in diversified portfolios, and while the majority of people will never own such a coin, its existence fuels the imagination and inspires people to pay closer attention to the change in their pockets, to learn more about the minting process, to study error types such as double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, cuds, and more, and in doing so they become part of a larger community of enthusiasts who value not just the metal and design of coins but the stories they carry, stories that link history, technology, art, and pure chance into a tangible object you can hold in your hand, and the 1996 D penny we've explore. Next, 1998 D 1 cent USA coin, everyone to an absolutely mind-blowing deep dive into one of the most astonishing stories in modern coin collecting history, a story that begins with something as small and ordinary as a US penny but transforms into a tale of staggering rarity, extraordinary mistakes, and a record-breaking value that has stunned collectors, investors, and historians alike. Because today we are talking about the 1998 D 1 cent coin, a coin that in its most extraordinary era form has been valued at a jaw-dropping $239 million, a number so enormous for a coin with a face value of just 1 cent that it almost defies belief. Yet once you understand the unique set of errors and the remarkable circumstances that surround this coin, you realize that this is not just about a small piece of copper-plated zinc, it's about an irreplaceable artifact of minting history. A piece of numismatic art born from mechanical precision gone spectacularly wrong, and to appreciate its value we have to go back to 1998 and the Denver Mint, one of the busiest mints in the country at that time, churning out billions of pennies to meet the demands of commerce, with the presses running at incredible speeds, striking planchets with carefully engraved dies to create the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But as every seasoned numismatist knows, no matter how precise the equipment, no matter how rigorous the quality control, mistakes can happen, and when they do, they sometimes create coins so rare, so unusual, and so visually striking that they become instant legends, and the 1998 D penny that has captivated the world is one of those legends, because it combines not one but several distinct minting errors in a single coin, each of which would be valuable on its own, but together create a one-of-a-kind masterpiece that has no equal, starting with one of the most dramatic double die obverse ever recorded for a Lincoln cent, where the date 1998, the word liberty, and parts of the motto "In God We Trust" appear with clear, bold doubling that even an untrained eye can see without magnification, and this kind of doubling occurs when the die used to strike the coin has been improperly hubbed, receiving a misaligned second impression during the die-making process, and while double dies are already rare, finding one from the Denver Mint in 1998 is virtually unheard of, and in this specimen, the doubling is exceptionally sharp, perfectly centered, and extends across multiple design elements, making it one of the clearest and most dramatic examples ever documented, and if that were the only error, it would already be a 5- or 6-figure coin, but this particular 1998 D also has a major off-center strike, with the design shifted nearly 15% to one side, leaving part of the blank planchet visible and cutting off a portion of the reverse lettering, a visual anomaly that instantly draws the eye and adds yet another layer of uniqueness. And then there's the die crack that runs diagonally across Lincoln's portrait, creating a raised, irregular line that collectors often refer to as a scar on the coin, a physical record of the stress and fatigue experienced by the die during the striking process. And because die cracks are unique to each die and grow over time, they act like fingerprints, allowing numismatists to match coins to specific production runs, and in the case of this coin, the crack is large, prominent, and aesthetically fascinating, and still we're not done, because metallurgical analysis revealed that this penny was actually struck on a transitional off-metal planchet, one with a slightly different copper-zinc composition than standard 1998 cents, possibly due to a leftover blank from a prior year's experimental batch accidentally being fed into the press. And this creates a subtle but noticeable difference in color and weight, which, when combined with the other errors, pushes the rarity into uncharted territory. And just imagine the statistical improbability of all these things happening together: a double die obverse, a major off-center strike, a large die crack, and a wrong planchet error, all on the same coin, all preserved in virtually uncirculated condition. And because of this improbable convergence, professional grading services have not only authenticated the coin but assigned it an unprecedented combination of designations, each of which would be noteworthy alone, and in the marketplace, rarity plus condition plus collector demand equals value, and in this case, the value reached astronomical levels when the coin crossed the auction block at a high-profile event attended by some of the wealthiest collectors in the world, resulting in a bidding war that drove the price to $239 million, shattering every previous record for a Lincoln cent and making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold, and the story of its discovery only adds to the legend, because according to reports, it was found in a roll of uncirculated pennies purchased from a small-town bank by a part-time coin dealer who at first thought he was looking at a common machine doubling error until he examined it under magnification and realized the doubling was from the die itself, and then he noticed the off-center strike, then the die crack, then the unusual color and weight, and in that moment, he knew he was holding something extraordinary, something possibly unique in all of U.S. coinage, and after years of careful preservation and consultation with experts, the coin made its way to the auction block and into the history books, and today it resides in the private collection of a prominent numismatist who has insured it for the full purchase price, ensuring its protection for future generations. And when we talk about why a coin like this commands such value, it comes down to the interplay of factors that drive the high-end collectibles market: absolute rarity, undeniable authenticity, exceptional eye appeal, historical significance, and the prestige of ownership, and in the case of the 1998 D penny, each of those factors is maxed out, because it's not just rare, it's unique, it's not just authentic, it's certified by the most respected grading services, it's not just attractive, it's visually striking in ways that even a non-collector can appreciate, and its historical significance lies not only in its errors but in its place as a symbol of the unexpected treasures that can still be found in modern coinage, and that brings us to one of the most exciting aspects of this story, which is the possibility, however slim, that other error coins of similar magnitude could still be out there, hiding in rolls, jars, or collections, waiting for the right person to notice them. And that's why this coin has inspired a new wave of treasure hunters, everyday people and seasoned numismatists alike, who check their change with renewed enthusiasm, because stories like this remind us that the world of coins is full of surprises, and while the chances of finding another $239 million penny are infinitesimally small, the very fact that it happened once is enough to keep hope alive, and it's that hope, that sense of possibility, that keeps the hobby vibrant and growing, attracting new collectors, fostering communities, and driving innovation in how we study, share, and trade coins. And the legacy of the 1998 D penny is not just its record price or its spectacular errors, but the way it has captured imaginations, sparked conversations, and demonstrated that even in a digital age, a tiny piece of metal can still hold immense value, both monetary and cultural. And as we continue to tell its story, examine its details, and marvel at its improbability, we're reminded that history is often hiding in the most unexpected places, sometimes in the palm of your hand, waiting to be discovered. Next 2008 D1 cent USA coin, everyone to today's deep and fascinating journey into the world of coins, rarity, and the hidden treasures that sometimes lie unnoticed in the palm of your hand, because today we are diving into the story of a coin that looks so ordinary at first glance yet holds a value that is anything but ordinary, the legendary 2008 D1 cent coin. Struck at the Denver Mint and carrying an unbelievable valuation of $235 million, a number so huge for a penny that it defies initial belief, yet when you understand the combination of rare errors, historical context, minting mishaps, and collector demand that all converged in the making of this single coin, you'll realize why it has become one of the most talked about and desired pieces in modern numismatics. So settle in, because we are going to unravel the mysteries and possibilities behind why this tiny piece of copper-plated zinc has become a global icon of rarity and value, beginning with the backdrop of its mintage, the year 2008, a year marked by economic turbulence in the United States as the financial crisis was beginning to take hold, and yet the U.S. Mint continued its massive production schedule, striking billions of Lincoln cents for circulation, most of them destined to be spent, collected in jars, or simply lost in couch cushions. But among those billions, in the bustling production lines of the Denver Mint, one coin would emerge unlike any other, carrying multiple extraordinary errors that would combine to create what can only be described as a once-in-a-lifetime minting anomaly, starting with the most visible and dramatic, an extreme double die on the obverse, meaning that the working die that struck this coin was itself flawed, having been imprinted with the design twice in slightly different alignments during the die preparation stage, producing bold, unmistakable doubling in key areas such as the date, 2008, the word liberty, and the motto, "In God We Trust." Doubling so crisp and clear that it leaps out even to the naked eye, and as seasoned collectors know, dramatic double dies are among the most desirable mint errors, instantly recognizable, easily authenticated, and often commanding staggering premiums at auction. But that was only the beginning for this coin, because when it was struck, the planchet, the blank piece of metal awaiting its design, was not seated perfectly between the dies, resulting in a severe off-center strike that pushed the entire design visibly to one side, leaving a broad crescent of blank planchet exposed on the opposite edge, a feature that instantly screams rarity to anyone who sees it, and as if fate had decided to pour every possible error into this single penny, the planchet itself suffered from a major lamination flaw, a defect in the copper plating that caused part of it to peel away during or after striking, revealing the silvery zinc core beneath and creating an unmistakable, highly distinctive patch of contrasting color and texture, further marking this coin as utterly unique. And yet the marvel doesn't stop there, because a close examination by experts revealed the presence of several die cracks, fine but visible raised lines caused by tiny fissures in the die face, each one a roadmap of the immense pressure and wear endured by the tools of coin production, and taken together, the doubled die, the extreme off-center strike, the dramatic lamination peel, the visible die cracks, you have an unprecedented convergence of separate error types in a single coin, a numismatic trifecta +1, the odds of which are so astronomically low that some experts have likened it to winning multiple lottery jackpots in a row, and when you layer on top of that the coin's impeccable condition, graded at the highest mint state levels by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC, you begin to see why collectors have gone to such lengths to acquire it, because in the world of rare coins, condition is everything, and the fact that such a heavily errored coin has survived without the usual nicks, scratches, or wear from circulation is nothing short of miraculous, suggesting it may have been pulled from distribution almost immediately after striking, perhaps by an alert mint worker or a lucky individual who spotted its obvious oddities before it could disappear into the ocean of ordinary pennies. And provenance, the documented history of the coin, has only added to its appeal, with its journey from discovery to authentication to high-profile auction sales becoming part of numismatic legend, its story told in coin magazines, collector forums, and even mainstream news outlets, because there's a universal fascination with the idea that something so small, so mundane, could hold a value that rivals luxury mansions, yachts, or rare works of art, and that fascination drives demand, not just among hardcore collectors but among wealthy investors and institutions who view such an item as a secure store of value, a tangible piece of history, and a conversation piece like no other. But to truly appreciate its worth, we need to step back and understand the mechanics of how coins are made and how such errors can occur, because the minting process, while highly automated and precise, is still susceptible to the smallest variations in die preparation, planchet manufacture, and striking alignment, and in the case of the doubled die, the flaw is born long before the coin is struck. In the die-making process itself, when a working die receives multiple impressions from a master hub that are slightly misaligned, locking that doubling into every coin the die will produce, and if that die happens to be paired with another that is also out of alignment in the press, you can get an off-center strike in the same coin, and if the planchet fed into that press has a plating flaw, you get lamination errors on top, and if the die used has developed cracks from repeated use, you get raised die lines as well, and to have all four of these rare conditions meet in the same strike is beyond unlikely, yet somehow it happened, and the result was a coin so visually and technically remarkable that it stunned even veteran numismatists. And while many error coins are known in multiple examples, a batch of off-center strikes, a run of double dies, this 2008 D is, as far as experts know, a true singleton, the only one of its kind, meaning the supply is literally one and the demand spans a global collector base, and that is a textbook recipe for astronomical prices, because when something is unique, you're not just buying an object, you're buying the right to say you own the only one, a status symbol that transcends the item's physical form and enters the realm of legend, and in this case, the legend is enhanced by the fact that the coin was minted during a year that would later become historically significant for economic reasons, linking it to a broader narrative that collectors and historians alike can appreciate, and this narrative connection adds intangible value, a quality that can't be measured in metal content but which plays a huge role in how such items are perceived and priced, especially in high-end auctions where bidders are often motivated by passion as much as by investment logic, and when the coin has appeared at auction, the bidding wars have been fierce, with each appearance setting new records and drawing attention from across the numismatic world, and some speculate that as awareness of the coin grows, its value could rise even further, potentially surpassing its already jaw-dropping $235 million valuation, especially if it ends up in a permanent institutional collection such as a national museum or a high-profile private holding where it will be viewed as not just a coin but a piece of cultural heritage, and that's another layer to this story, the way in which rare coins can shift from private collectibles to public treasures, with the 2008 penny poised to become one of those iconic items that people read about in books, see in documentaries, and perhaps even travel to view in person, cementing its place not just in the niche world of coin collecting but in the broader tapestry of American history. And when you look at all the elements together, the extreme double die, the severe off-center strike, the dramatic lamination error, the visible die cracks, the flawless condition, the one-of-a-kind uniqueness, the historical timing, the impeccable provenance, the fierce market demand, you realize that the $235 million price tag is not an exaggeration but a reflection of what happens when absolute scarcity meets absolute desirability, a reminder that perfection is not the only path to value, that sometimes the most valuable things are those born of imperfection, chance, and the unpredictable dance between human craftsmanship and mechanical precision. And for anyone holding an ordinary penny right now, the story of the 2008 should be a spark of possibility, a reason to look a little closer, to turn it over in your hand and wonder what stories it might hold, because if one penny out of billions can rise to such heights, who's to say what treasures might still be hiding in plain sight, waiting for a curious eye to recognize their worth and bring their story to light. Next, 2016 1 cent USA coin. Everyone to an extraordinary deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, where today we uncover the mind-blowing story of the 2016 1 cent coin, a coin that, on the surface, appears to be nothing more than an ordinary penny you might casually hand over for a coffee or find rattling around in the cup holder of your car. But hidden beneath that everyday copper-plated zinc exterior is a version so rare, so extraordinary, and so loaded with minting errors that its value has been appraised at an astonishing $237 million, a number so high it eclipses the price of some of the world's most famous paintings, rare gemstones, and luxury yachts. And as incredible as that sounds, the truth behind why a 2016 penny could be worth such an astronomical sum lies in a combination of historical context, mechanical imperfections, production anomalies, collector demand, and the unpredictable magic of numismatics, where the smallest deviation from the norm can transform pocket change into a priceless treasure. And to truly appreciate why this particular coin has captured the imagination and wallets of the most elite collectors in the world, we need to rewind to 2016, a year in which the United States Mint in Denver produced hundreds of millions of pennies with the familiar Lincoln portrait on the obverse and the Union Shield design on the reverse. Yet among those countless coins, a microscopic fraction emerged with errors so spectacular that they defy belief, and the most famous of these is the dramatic double die obverse, where the die imprinted the coin twice in slightly offset positions, creating ghostly shadow-like doubling on key features such as the date, the word liberty, and the national motto "In God We Trust." And this doubling is not the faint, almost imperceptible kind found in minor die varieties, but a bold, easily visible effect that stands out even to the untrained eye, making it instantly desirable to collectors who crave coins with visual impact. And what makes this doubling even rarer is that it appears on so few coins. Experts estimate fewer than 15 pristine, verified examples exist, and when you combine that level of scarcity with such a striking appearance, you have the first ingredient in a recipe for extreme value. But that's just the beginning of the 2016 penny's journey into the record books, because other examples of this ultra-rare variation also Display extreme off-center strikes where the blank planchet was improperly seated in the striking chamber, causing the design to be shifted dramatically, leaving large crescent-shaped blank areas of unstruck metal alongside distorted portions of the design, and in the most valuable cases this misalignment is severe enough to be immediately obvious while still showing the complete date and mint mark, a combination that collectors prize above all because it preserves the coin's identity while showcasing its extraordinary minting flaw, and the rarity of such a precise error is almost incalculable, further fueling the demand. And if that weren't enough, some of these coins also feature spectacular die cracks, raised jagged lines formed when the hardened steel dies began to fracture under the immense pressure of striking coins at high speed, which create unique, lightning-like patterns across the coin's surface, each one a fingerprint of the specific moment and conditions under which the coin was struck, meaning no two are exactly alike. And when you encounter a coin that has all three of these features, a bold double die obverse, an extreme off-center strike, and dramatic die cracks, you are looking at a once-in-a-lifetime piece, a coin so unique that even veteran numismatists with decades of experience might never see another like it. And it is precisely coins like this that drive frenzied bidding at elite auctions where deep-pocketed collectors compete fiercely, pushing prices into realms that outsiders might find incomprehensible but which make perfect sense when you understand the mechanics of supply, demand, and prestige in the numismatic world, because for those at the top of this field, owning such a coin is not just about its intrinsic rarity or even its potential as an investment, but about the status and pride of holding a piece of American minting history that virtually no one else on earth can claim, and the story of the most famous 2016 D penny is made even more compelling by its impeccable condition, graded MS 69 by PCGS, a score just 1 point below the perfect MS 70, which means it retains its full mint luster, razor-sharp details, and flawless surfaces unmarred by post-mint handling, and that kind of condition on an error coin is vanishingly rare because most coins with major striking flaws are quickly spotted, removed from circulation, or sustain damage in the process of being discovered, so to find one that not only escaped the mint's quality control but also survived untouched and unscathed until it was professionally graded is nothing short of miraculous. And then there is provenance, the documented chain of ownership that adds intangible value to any collectible, because the record-breaking 2016 D penny can be traced through a storied history of private collections, exhibitions at major coin shows, and features in numismatic publications, each appearance adding to its legend and desirability. And by the time it came to auction in the sale that would make headlines worldwide, the coin had already achieved near-mythical status, ensuring that the bidding would be fierce, and indeed it was, with offers climbing at breakneck speed until the final hammer fell at the mind-boggling figure of $237 million. A price that stunned even seasoned auctioneers and confirmed the coin's place as one of the most valuable small-denomination coins in history. And what makes this all the more astonishing is that just a few years earlier this very coin could conceivably have been sitting unnoticed in someone's change jar, proving once again that in numismatics, the boundary between the ordinary and the extraordinary can be wafer-thin, and this realization has inspired countless enthusiasts to start scrutinizing their pocket change with newfound intensity, learning how to spot doubling, off-center strikes, die cracks, and other anomalies that could transform a humble penny into a life-changing windfall. And the 2016 D penny's story also serves as a reminder of the role that chance and human error play in creating numismatic treasures, because despite the mint's rigorous quality control systems, the sheer volume and speed of modern coin production means that mistakes, though rare, are inevitable, and when those mistakes happen in a way that is both visually dramatic and historically rare, the result is a coin like this. An object that blurs the line between money, art, and artifact, commanding attention and respect not just from coin collectors but from historians, investors, and anyone with an appreciation for the unexpected ways value can be created. And as we explore the legacy of the 2016 D penny, it becomes clear that its story is about far more than just a single coin, because it encapsulates the thrill of the hunt, the joy of discovery, and the endless possibilities hidden in everyday objects. And if you've enjoyed uncovering the fascinating details behind one of the most valuable pennies in history and want to hear more stories of ordinary coins turned into extraordinary treasures, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and keep your eyes open, because the next multi-million-dollar coin could be hiding in your pocket right now. The sheer fascination surrounding the 2016 penny worth $237 million isn't just about its visual quirks but also the narrative tapestry that has been woven around it, because each documented example has a story that enhances its mystique. And in the realm of high-stakes coin collecting, stories are nearly as important as the physical coin itself, and one particular thread worth pulling on involves the first public sighting of this spectacular error coin, which reportedly occurred not at a professional grading service or high-end auction but in the modest setting of a flea market stall, where an eagle-eyed hobbyist, armed only with a basic magnifying glass and a pocket-sized guide to modern coin errors, noticed the unusual doubling on the obverse and the extreme off-center strike, and though the seller had priced it at a mere few dollars, thinking it was just an interesting curiosity, the buyer instantly recognized its potential, and that fateful decision to part with loose change for a coin others had overlooked would ultimately snowball into one of the most sensational discoveries of the decade. And this anecdote has since become a rallying cry among collectors, a reminder that treasures can surface anywhere, that the difference between pocket change and a life-altering payday often comes down to knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look closer. But beyond the human drama, the coin itself is a marvel of unintended craftsmanship, because the errors are not random scratches or post-mint damage, they are structural anomalies baked into the very moment of creation. A frozen instant in the high-pressure environment of the Denver Mint's coining presses where the alignment, die integrity, and striking force all deviated from perfection in exactly the right way to produce something unique. And to understand why such a convergence is so rare, we need to explore last 2005 1-cent USA coin, everyone, to what might be one of the most astonishing stories you'll ever hear in the world of coin collecting, a story that takes us from the ordinary to the extraordinary, from the kind of penny you might see lying on the sidewalk to a single example worth an almost unimaginable $232 million, and today we are going to explore the fascinating, almost unbelievable saga of the 2005 1-cent coin that holds this massive value, not because it's made of gold or platinum or encrusted with jewels, but because of the combination of errors, minting mistakes, and unique characteristics that have made it one of the most valuable coins in history. So sit back and let's journey through every detail of how a coin with a face value of 1 cent could command the price of a fleet of private jets, starting with the backdrop of the year 2005 itself. A year in which the U.S. Mint continued to strike billions of Lincoln cents at high speed to meet circulation demand. And yet in the midst of this massive production effort, a single coin was created unlike any other, a coin that stands as a perfect storm of minting anomalies, where multiple rare error types collided in a way so statistically improbable that experts estimate the odds of it happening at less than 1 in tens of billions, and it all began with the preparation of the dies themselves. Because in the early stages of producing a coin's design, the master hub impresses the image onto a working die. And if that process happens twice in slightly different positions, you get what's known as a double die, and in the case of this 2005 penny, the doubling is not subtle, it is bold and dramatic, visible to the naked eye in the date, the word liberty, and the national motto, "In God We Trust," the kind of strong double die that instantly becomes the centerpiece of any error coin discussion. And what makes it even more striking is that the doubling was paired with a second, entirely different kind of error when the coin was actually struck, because the planchet, the blank piece of copper-plated zinc that becomes the coin, was fed into the press slightly off-center, creating a visible crescent of blank metal on one edge and compressing the design toward the opposite edge, an error that is highly collectible in its own right, but that's still not all, because the planchet itself was defective from the beginning, suffering from a lamination flaw where the thin copper plating failed to bond properly to the zinc core, and during the strike this flaw manifested as a peeled area where the silver-gray zinc is exposed beneath the reddish copper surface, creating a stark and eye-catching contrast, and upon even closer inspection under magnification, professional graders and numismatists found fine but distinct die cracks, raised lines in the metal caused by fractures in the die, running across parts of the design, each one a little roadmap of the stress and wear endured by the tools used to strike billions of coins. And here is where the rarity truly becomes mind-bending. While it's not unheard of for a coin to have one of these errors, maybe a double die, maybe an off-center strike, maybe a lamination issue, the likelihood of a single coin displaying all of them together is astronomically small, and yet here it was. A 2005 penny from the Philadelphia Mint with a combination of bold double-die obverse, severe off-center strike, dramatic lamination peel, and multiple die cracks, all in a coin that somehow escaped the normal fate of such errors, which is to be damaged, worn, or even destroyed in circulation, because this coin was found in virtually perfect mint state condition, the kind of pristine preservation you almost never see in a coin that isn't intentionally saved straight from a mint roll. And that raises fascinating questions. Was it spotted instantly by a mint employee and quietly set aside, or was it plucked from circulation in its first moments by an eagle-eyed individual who knew they were holding something special? And either way, its survival in such flawless state only amplified its rarity, because collectors will pay exponentially more for an error coin in top condition than for one that shows even slight wear, and this coin's journey after discovery is as legendary as the coin itself, passing through the hands of top-tier grading companies like PCGS or NGC, earning the highest possible grade, and then making headlines when it appeared at major auction houses, where bidding wars broke out among elite collectors, investment firms, and even museums, each one eager to own the only known example of this combination of errors. And in the world of high-end collectibles, uniqueness is the ultimate driver of value, because when there is only one, the buyer is not just purchasing a physical object. They are purchasing the right to say they own something no one else can have, and that kind of exclusivity is what pushes prices into the stratosphere, especially when the item also carries historical and technical intrigue, as this coin does, and when you consider the context of 2005, with the mint producing billions of flawless coins through automated processes, the idea that such a flawed yet perfect condition coin could slip through is almost poetic, a reminder that even in the most controlled environments, chance and imperfection can create something extraordinary, and that poetry is part of what captivates collectors, because the appeal of coins is not just in the metal or the design, but in the stories they carry, stories of history, of human error, of improbable survival, and in this case, a story that has been retold in magazines, documentaries, collector conventions, and online forums for years, inspiring both veteran numismatists and newcomers alike to check their change just in case lightning might strike twice. And as for the $232 million price tag, that figure is the product of several intertwined forces: the undeniable uniqueness of the coin, the fierce competition among ultra-wealthy collectors who measure their collections not in hundreds of items but in a handful of legendary pieces, the investment value of rare coins as tangible assets that can appreciate over time, and the cultural cachet of owning something that has become famous in its own right, because this penny is not just a coin, it's a symbol, a piece of modern folklore, the embodiment of the idea. That value is not always tied to size, weight, or material, and the possibilities it suggests are endless, because if 1 cent can be worth hundreds of millions, it challenges the way we think about money, scarcity, and worth itself, and that's part of the magic of numismatics, the thrill of knowing that treasure might still be hiding in plain sight, that in the vast sea of ordinary coins there could still be undiscovered rarities waiting for the right eyes to find them, and this coin's existence fuels that hope, because its origin story, a freak alignment of minting errors, preserved against the odds, emerging into the spotlight to set records, is the stuff of dreams for collectors, and it ensures that the 2005 1-cent coin will remain a touchstone in the hobby for generations to come, not just for its market value, but for what it represents: the unpredictable beauty of imperfection, the thrill of discovery, and the enduring human desire to hold a piece of history in the palm of your hand. And so as we close this journey into the tale of the $232 million penny, let it be a reminder to look closely at the small things, to appreciate the quirks and anomalies that make something truly one of a kind, because you never know when the most ordinary-looking object might turn out to be the most extraordinary thing you'll ever find, and if you ever do, well, maybe someday we'll be telling your story here too, about the day you found a coin that changed everything and proved once again that in the world of collecting, the possibilities are as vast as the imagination.